this to be as accurate as possible with respect to myself and the most beautiful doctor out there, cowboy wearing snake earring.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Little pop color. Well, I just want to thank y'all so much for coming out here today. I know that it's Oscars Day and that we are all praying and manifesting everything everywhere all at once in Angela Bassett. Okay, it's not hard in here, but it's okay. And the conversation is hard like. But I just want to thank y'all so much. Today we are going to be talking about a subject that is so near and dear to my heart. This book is a love letter to Black women. It is a love letter to Black country music, and I want to thank you for bringing this work back into visibility, for reclaiming and retelling the stories that have been lost to time. I think what you were doing is more beautiful than scholarship because it's actually almost ancestral and genealogy work, documenting and archiving this tradition that we made, that we brought over from the ships in the form of the banjo and ancestral work into something in contemporary modern day. So I am honored to be on this journey with you today. So thank you.
Thank you, Taylor. I feel very seen, and I can't wait to make conversation with you about this.
Amazing. All right, y'all. So I want to just start with the poem at the beginning of the book. And if I could, would you like to do a little reading of it for us, please?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Okay. The poem is an excerpt from Vievee Francis's poem, Happy. I am becoming as roots reclaim this soil, as what is felled takes on a form it could not have imagined, whose seeds had always rested below, but the sorrow of banjos.
Now, that is such a beautiful sonnet to like open up this text that is rooted in literally root working and reclamation. So please tell me the inspiration about why you wanted to have this be the first thing we as readers start with this text on.
Well, Vievee Francis's poem is partly about the experience of like moving and change and redefinition, reclamation. The rest of the poem is partly about a trip, a move back south, and this feeling of rediscovery that comes from this movie that she's making. So I definitely identify with sort of that feeling of kind of north to south, but also this idea of being rooted in your world as also being connected to these histories that you're also reclaiming and touching that are sometimes painful. And so her phrase, a sorrow of banjos, is such an original way to talk about, you know, the grouping, but also the sound and the history of the banjo. And so I really loved that image. And I also love the idea of banjos as seeds that have also kind of taken root and produced this whole musical history that I then kind of go on to talk about in the rest of the book. So it really, to me, also talks about just the rootedness and the desire to kind of reach back that propels the book.
The desire to reach back is evident as we go into your brilliant, right, you go into the Smokeout in Chicago, which is a country music festival, and you have this moment where you see other Black people and you're like, are you also here for the country music? And every comment was like, I'm here for the barbecue. Absolutely, absolutely. Which actually was a nice part. But I enjoyed the vulnerability that you took us. Like, I felt like I was right there beside you as you're in this space. That inherent in country music is Black music, but not all country spaces are Black or welcoming to Black folks.
Yeah.
So could you walk me why you decided to kind of open with that song that was walking with you, which goes into your scholarship?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I wanted to present it because I wanted to place myself in a particular moment and also as a Chicagoan. Chicago is in many ways a very Southern inspired, Southern reflected city, but it often hides it or denies it. And in the responses that I got about country music, I really felt that sense of denial. Most of the denials were very like good humored, but also kind of this idea that, you know, I'm messing up their afternoon by bringing it up. And so I really, also because that space was an interracial space where Black and brown people were really a sprinkling in this population, I wanted to recognize the kind of shared vulnerability and maybe the optics of being in this country music space. And then for myself, you know, thinking about as a, you know, my process of writing about country, how it often has been a kind of experience of vulnerability, of kind of saying the elephant in the room that maybe people don't really want to say, you know, dredging up shame or dredging up other moments of awkwardness. And so to me that episode of Going to the Festival was also about that, and about really wanting to be in community with the other fans who were there, but also like the difficulty, at least in that space, to find it. And I also just want to name that it was kind of a fearful process, or a tense process at times. Like, listening to music and writing about it is very pleasurable to me, but sometimes finding out and asking difficult questions in public can be also kind of frightening. And you know, as a person who, you know, really tries her best to be very polite and to not make people uncomfortable, and you know, at least in my living life, not in my writing life, it just pushed buttons for me as well. So, but throughout, I'm trying to kind of return to that moment to think about all those different layers and tensions. In that section, I write about Leonard Skinner's Sweet Home Alabama, and a song that on the surface and maybe before my research I really thought of as a kind of sonic sign of being shut out of country music because of its nostalgia that I associate with whiteness. And it was really finding out the stories of Mary Clayton and Clayton King, the African-American background singers who were really a key part of the sound of that music. I recognized that there were just a lot of layers, not only to the story of Alabama that they're telling, but also the sonic impact of the song, and you know, some of the parts that I really thought were just like undeniably powerful about that song, and that many people that I talked to recognized as like a really powerful emotional moment, are those moments where Clayton King and Mary Clayton are singing. And so their sense of the song is a protest of Alabama's racist history at the same time that Leonard Skinner is singing a song of nostalgia about a kind of bracketed white supremacist Alabama, that those things could exist in the same song was kind of a revelation to me, and what I hope to keep finding, which I really did find, was layers.
I love the utilization of the word tension. It reminds me of the term percussive feminism, which comes from the field of study of hip-hop feminism, where it is this experience for being a Black woman. I love hip-hop, but also it is layered with all of those tensions, right? How can I love this musical production and the cultural production of Black people, of Black women, utilized to uplift and protest, but at the same time, because it's my gender identity and my sexual orientation, there are songs that are inherently violent to me, which I don't feel welcome in the space. So I wanted to kind of go into that scholarship that you use to explore those tensions and those layers, because you do such a beautiful job of addressing country music from a cultural, social, and regional level.
Thank you. Well, some of the I think percussive feminist elements that I bring in are actually from the musicians themselves. I see them as scholars. They're definitely archivists. Here thinking about Valerie June and Rhiannon Giddens in particular, our Native Daughters as a collective. They're using music to enter into these moments of tension, to look backwards and forwards, and to like hold those tensions in the music that they write, so that within a single song you get this sense of deep pain, like thinking about the son in the mood on our Native Daughters album, songs of our Native Daughters. There's this sense of pain and violence being named, but also this experience of healing and resilience that, you know, is definitely solidly connected to the banjo, to the layered playing of the banjo, multiple banjos on that particular song, and their voices. So I really hear all of that. A big influence on me has also always been Trisha Rose, and her claiming of hip hop, you know, as this space that can be a critique, but also acknowledging, you know, sometimes the constraints within the music as well. And Joe Morgan and Lindsay Beasley as well are great critics who are taking us into that resilient power of hip hop and buttons.
We are all great authors. And it's funny, I was talking to you earlier, researchers, I found myself looking into, you know, Black feminist thought, and pop feminism, trap feminism. And when I finished with your book, I was like, she has created, whether consciously or unconsciously, this own like subgenre, which I like to call like boot scooting booty feminism. What you've done is take something that, like, with intention, and that has been marketed as something that is not for us in any way, but then bring it back home to the fact where it's like, oh, I may be 27 and a half, because my birthday is January 31st, I'm a virgin 22. But this has made me feel so happy and welcomed in a lot of levels. And I'm a multi-generational Texan. I have a lot of Black cowhand, cowboy, cowgirl ancestors, but because of the modern day country, sometimes it was hard to reach back and honor them. And I think your book for me kind of gave me a revelation and understanding to why spaces feel uncomfortable for me.
Thank you, Taylor. I really am happy to hear that. And you are exactly like who I had in mind, even not knowing yet what I was writing. And my strategy in writing and bringing in myself, and sometimes making myself vulnerable as I'm also kind of exploring this music that feels so vulnerable and tender to me, but also, you know, tough, is to, in part, kind of do homage to the power of the music that I write about. You know, as someone who's always yearned to make music herself, but I'm not, you know, very talented musician. You know, my relationship to language and to words is one way that I can contribute somehow to that act of, you know, telling a story that's difficult together, that I think the best country music does. And, you know, just kind of put myself a little bit on the line when so many of the artists that I admire are also doing that. So, but I wrote that, and I didn't know that you were also a clarinet. My birthday is the day before yours. Oh no, you're a Virgo.
January, July 31st. But my birthday is January 13th, so.
Oh, okay.
I think you're eating today, country music, the multitude, it all. That's all good. One thing I also enjoy is that it's someone who has a deep admiration of music scholarship, of feminist scholarship. What was that process of gathering archival work? Because this seems to be such a landmark text in the way that you were putting yourself in conversation with music scholars, with artist scholars, like kind of getting that degree behind the scenes to do experiencing difficulties and trying to find academic work or backgrounds to
Yeah, well, you know, especially when I started, I did have some challenge in terms of finding exactly what I wanted in scholarly, in the scholarly world, but I was definitely able to find more in terms of podcasts and YouTubes and interviews, and Rissy Palmer's Code and Country radio show is like a primary and secondary text. Like, she is such a powerful archive gatherer. I actually, there is also like a movement in country music scholarship to reckon with racism, xenophobia as well, and sexism. And I had the joy of working on and co-editing a special issue of the Journal of Popular Music Studies with Vievee Francis when I was at the more beginning stages of this book. And I went into it with Dean in part because I knew that issues were percolating in scholarship, in music scholarship. And I kind of wanted to be a part of it, and I thought by editing, it's a great way to kind of read and hear those new voices, to be in conversation with them, and just get more of a sense of the field, because I think the field of country music studies is also huge. And you know, this is my first book on country music, so I recognize that there are people whose whole careers are dedicated to it. So that was a really great learning experience for me, and histories like Carl Hagstrom Miller's history of like kind of really tracing hip hop, blackface, blackface hip hop, blackface coon songs, like some of those early forms of entertainment, and how those are like this also kind of connected to the evolution of the commercial form of country music as we know it. I really owe a lot to his work. So I think in my own archives, I also tried to go to some of the places that folks like Valerie and Yannon went to find and listen to early sources. So I also went to the Smithsonian, to the Library of Congress to listen and just kind of hear some of what they're hearing, and you know, just that experience of hearing the strangeness in some ways of older musics, and then also the connection. So I feel like I can get even more of their sense of their strategies for composition and making new songs by listening to old tunes.
So while you were on this musical journey, how did the legendary great Tina Turner find her way to you?
Yes. Well, I've loved Tina Turner for a long, long time. I wrote about her a while back on the issue of sonic labor and Black women's labor, and sort of connected to this, kind of impetus to make a cultural impetus to make things that are very difficult to do real easy that I see in a lot of Black women's art. And so that led me to Etsy, where I found the Black country music album, which Tina Turner's Country on, which hasn't been in print for a while. And so I ordered it and I listened to it, and I was so excited about it. And I realized that there wasn't a lot out there. That kind of led me also to not only kind of write about my own response to this really tender music, which she made at a point of being on the precipice of her own change in her private life. She hadn't ended her marriage yet, but she was sort of gathering up her energy, and I really see that album as documenting this process of mourning and grieving, this marriage and also of survival. And so when I wrote about that album, I was really trying to trace some of those feelings. So I wrote another essay about Tina, and also started talking to friends and friends of friends who were Black women, who were country music fans. And I realized that, a lot of people that I knew or people that I knew, or friends of people that I knew, were big fans, but also kind of closet fans of country music. And eventually I connected up with Holly G, who is an amazing producer and an activist and blogger about Black country music, and her latest is to bring together Black country music artists who are little known through the Black Opera Review. But before she did that, she created this amazing website that was really for Black fans and Black performers families to come together and to feel safe and, to have their own space. So talking to Holly also kind of reinforced things that I learned from talking to my friends, which is that a lot of people feel a great sense of identification with country music, but feel unsafe consuming it and celebrating it in public. And it made me realize that there's a real need to create a space of connection and to amplify the fact that this is a history that's also ours, and some of that discomfort that we might feel in white country music spaces is directly connected to the process of erasure, sometimes violent erasure. And so that got me on my journey. Once I started talking to folks, I realized, oh, this is bigger than I thought. One thing led to another, and then the music industry was also reflecting this renaissance of Black country music artists. And I think that renaissance is probably connected to the work of some particular people who worked really hard to build community like Rhiannon and the work of Rissy and Guy Newman, and folks are really also talking explicitly about the problems in the kind of mainstream country music industry kind of coming out, telling these coming out stories about those experiences of loss.
We've been talking so briefly about Black feminist scholarship that informs this book and research, but it's also informed by queer theory. And while reading your text, it was the first time I was like, wow, am I in a closet lesbian? About being country music? Like, I never would equate queerness to country music. In fact, it's being like, I'm Taylor Crumpton, and there's country music on my iPhone. But that is an experience that I think is very, can be equated to be like, well, I know that I'm not inherently straight, and like, that is okay. So tell me about the queerness of country music, and I think that is so beautifully evident in your Tina Turner chapter, where she's seducing you with romance. I mean, and it's kind of like this gender flavor. It's kind of like this fluidity and exploration that only Tina can give us.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I think that I definitely hear and am kind of hailed, by that music. Because it's so emotional to me, and also kind of music that is asking me to be in relation to it in kind of a deep way. So I feel a kind of queerness that way that can also be fluid in terms of gender. And even if that wasn't Tina Turner's intention, that I can be, as much, and other women listeners can be empathetic and energized and erotic listeners to her music. So I think that, that's really connected to the politics of care and listening, and care doesn't have to be erotic, but I think it can be. So that's one way that I see the queerness of this music. But I'm also, thinking about one of my favorite queer theorists, Jose Esteban, who has written about queer utopia and futurity. And his idea is that queer artists make the art for the world, reflecting the world and the experiences that they yearn for. But they're also, that art also marks the fact that that's not the world that we have. And so that sense of projection into the future that's also connected to mourning and anger and dissatisfaction about the world is something that I hear in the music itself, and also reading about the careers of people like Rissy or others who have persisted despite the fact that they've gone through really difficult struggle in the process. And I see a lot of the artists that I'm looking like the commitment to continue to make music and to make joy, to carry as seeds to a future, despite it sometimes reflecting pain that they experienced. And I know that for Rissy, as well as for me, the work of Linda Montel, as an artist who made this one powerful record, Color Me Country, and then got cut off by her label, is just like this important symbol of this sense of lost music. Because more and more, the more I research, the more I talk about people, there are so many artists who've had really similar experiences, artists of color. So, when new artists or newer artists take up this genre that has been so unwelcoming to artists of color, to Black artists, we're doing so, I think, in a way that's reflecting this loss and exploitation, and also planting the seeds in listeners as well as other artists to continue and to keep going. And I think that's a beautiful weird thing to do.
And also for me, it's kind of almost, it seems like Afrofuturism, like using this technology, like the technology of music and production, to kind of envision and hope and give birth to this future yet imagine, where there is this equality and equitable measures for Black artists or artists of color, for LGBTQ artists, to not be tokenized. I think what we have been seeing lately, in response to a lot of things that happened in 2020 after the loss of George Floyd, actually a future where we are centered and prioritized. And I think your book also kind of reflects that, where it's like, yes, it does touch upon the violent acts of erasures, the way in which the modern day country music industry has implemented structures and technologies and legislation to make sure that it continues to be erased, that it continues to be erased by time. But the artists that you mentioned, the work that you're doing, come back to us like, why don't we imagine a world shepherded and carried by this newer generation that continues to make country music, and I believe the way it was meant to be made, which is something of joy, which is something of jubilee, just something that we can line dance to, whether that line dance is a honky-honk or electric slide. Yeah. But I just see so many cultural similarities between the two ideologies in fields of study.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, Francesca T said something like, a line dance is or without us. As a patient. So yeah, I really appreciate that. I was thinking a lot about the technologies of the music of someone like Gladys Black or Cameron Thomas, who are two really amazing kind of experimental subcultural artists, and they really think of their music they're making as performance art as well as music, as well as primarily music or music-driven performance art. Both of them use ukuleles and acoustic instruments, but they're also especially Delilah, making their own videos and producing and distributing things, like using YouTube, using all these other kinds of technologies to get music out there. And Cameron Thomas is also an Afrofuturist, not only in this music that she's making, which is thinking about land and loss and erasure and mourning, but also in making these communities like the Country Soul Songbook Summit, which is an annual online conference. I think it's actually was in person this last year, that brings together artists, distributors and producers, journalists. I think I actually saw you there. The occasional scholar. And it's just a really beautiful space to talk about surviving and thriving and connecting to other folks in an anti-racist way and making music. And so it's like a very joyful space, and to it when it comes out in December.
I did enjoy being there virtually, and what I'm hearing is the creation of digital spaces in our online community, because we are feeling this unwelcomeness, this violence, this kind of thick in the air when we go into these physical spaces. Yeah. And these, yes, eating. But what I like about these digital spaces is that they are incubators for intellectual discussion from the beginner's doing, but also, this is something we both love, we hashtag eliminate syllabus.
Yes. Syllabus.
Yes. In which I probably say that Beyoncé was showing us that she is a country artist.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. I read about daddy lessons, but after having like this wonderful conversation with Charlotte Humans a few months ago, she really got me to hear that the whole album of Lemonade could really be heard as a country album.
And this for years.
And I think the Lemonade syllabus movement that has come out of that hashtag has been so powerful because it's a really great model of the ways that our deepest connection to the music that we love can also be a way of connecting to others, educating ourselves, being in community, and I just think it's a great model of how important music is as a way of forming community.
And I think the history of daddy lessons, oftentimes, I think people forget that Beyoncé is a Texan.
Yes.
Even though I've never seen a black woman wear a cowboy hat so many times on a consistent basis, to remind you,
Yes.
she even went for Texas a lot of times. But what I see, what I see in this memory, this exchange, is we know that Tina Turner is such a heavy influence of Beyoncé. They performed together.
Yes.
And we have seen these two women, these two cultural icons, pop, music, fashion, digital, you name it, have both reclaimed their country roots and put out country songs, but the response to them was not critically acclaimed or seen as negative. Do you believe that there is some type of ink, maybe elephant in the room, why there seems to be this inability for country music to accept these black women from the South making country music and an homage to their roots?
Yes, I do think that's true because I think that both Tina and Beyoncé are bosses. Like they are not accepting, a position of maybe even only on your award show. That wherever they are, they take up massive space and they, insist on a position of leadership. When I was writing about Beyonce's appearance on the CMAs with the Chips and how controversial that performance was, some of it I think does have to do with the political activities of Beyonce and the Chips, at that moment and also in the past. But also I think that there's just like this sense of strength and solidarity, the claiming of Texas, and just this attitude of, yes, of course I belong here, and I am, she was kind of leading the charge, leading the performance. So I do think that that's part of just the sense of amazing expertise and power that these artists are offering, but also with it, the history that they're bringing with them that belies the idea that Black creativity is marginal to country music. Because once you deep dive into their work, you hear the resonances across time of the importance of Black voices in country music. And I think that's something that's always been asked to be segregated and separate.
Would you mind giving us some biographical excellence and reading from the Beyoncé chapter?
Oh, sure, yeah. It would be my honor. Let's see. Okay. Okay, I'll stay here. Okay. Give it up for the Dixie Chicks. Beyoncé demands of a slightly stunned CMA audience, using her dazzling presence and authority to give the song along. She's rocking a sequin dress that screams sexy mom eagles, hair worn crystal heel straight, mane straighter McGuire and Beyoncé trade a series of calls and responses of Texas, the location of their shared roots. However distinct their individual experiences of that Texas might be. Daddy Lessons is a song about rough around the edges daddy, from a daughter's loving and critical perspective. Throughout the performance, Beyoncé and the Chicks convey mutual support and admiration, clapping and moving it up in encouragement, harmonizing with one another, completing one another's sentences, reading into one another, even briefly sharing a line, though it's rare for any diva to give a line. About 4 minutes, the song segues into the chick's long time gone, their Grammy and CNN winning hit from 2002, their own song about daddies and old lessons that we might have outgrown. Keep those hands clapping, Beyoncé instructs. I want to be an outlaw like Beyoncé. I want to show up where I'm not expected and rock the house, bring the people to their feet, sing with my friends, lead a horn section, whoop and yee-haw, shake our bodies without shame. I want to swagger and twerk and ride a horse down my city street, like Beyoncé does on the videos for Sorry or Hold Up. Stop traffic and borrow a bat to swing into a window or two. Open up a fire hydrant so that the small children can dance with glee. Drive a monster tractor, crushing muscle car rooftops, all while balancing on glorious high-heeled sandals. Tired of being invisible, of being polite, of swallowing my words in pain.
Y'all hear that? In an alternate universe, I have the yellow dress, so I really wanted to come here with the back. So it was just like, after you just put that on my body, and the bat is here, and then you have the horse, and we'll ride out after One of the things I love about that chapter is Beyoncé is an outlaw, right? Everything that she did during that performance is accepted and admired and elevated by any white men, women, white men in country music.
Yes.
They're allowed to dominate the stage. They are allowed to demand, to instruct, to command. But for Beyonce, it feels almost like they came to Tina Turner or Vievee Francis, where it's this ringleader, where it's this like cool presence. And I love how you bring that into the text.
Thank you. Yeah, I really feel that too. I was thinking about the outlaw movement in country music of the 70s and the ways that, also acknowledging that that label wasn't one that the artists themselves chose, but the idea of being subversive, of working the underground, and also tough and being a little bit, above the law, whether it's the laws of the music industry or the laws of drug laws or whatever it is that, Waylon and Lillian were after. So I was thinking about that movement and thinking about how in the sound of that music, there's really an homage, mostly implicit to the blues and to Black artists, and even thinking about Johnny Cash's Man in Black. The idea about Blackness that's swirling all around the outlaws. And that's why I think Beyonce's Daddy Lessons is so profound, because she's seeing this portrait of an outlaw daddy who arms himself and kind of defines justice for himself, and that she then kind of is inspired by and takes on. But she's also calling to our attention to the fact that these are Black figures, and the very idea of claiming your Second Amendment as a Black man, especially in 2016, is so radical and difficult. But I don't think she even stops there, because she's not just about claiming the outlaw. We need to rethink our relationship to violence, and we have to rethink old ideas about masculinity, and that in the end, by the time we get to the end of Lemonade, she's really asking us to rethink what we think of as the family, the community, and to offer new ideas about masculinity and femininity. So her vision is, I think, even wider and more powerful than she's Beyoncé. So, hopefully, was listening to Lemonade and Daddy Lessons and hear a little bit of their own vision, but also something new.
I hear you, I'm Susan. Because I'm like, yes, you know, you can read it Renaissance.
Oh, well, Renaissance. I mean, gosh, you can't take that. I mean, that is so outlaw and so beautiful, and also like a lot of Western America, which is really awesome.
You've been hinting at, have you heard rodeo, Western Winger, Western City, Country Apple, and if so, we all know who needs to be in. she has learned from her father, the lessons that she's interacted and seen between her father and her mother. And when I'm thinking about the Tina chapter, it also does think about the domestic violence that Tina witnessed in her home in Tennessee.
Yes.
And the way that she uses country music to kind of give language and also archive and document that violence. And express her rage, the rage that she may felt as a little girl in Tennessee, the rage that she feels in this tumultuous relationship with Ike Turner. So would you mind reading an excerpt from the Tina chapter as well? Or,
Yeah, sure. Black women have almost always had a complex relationship to countryness and with that country music, whether they're from the North, the third generation product of the Great Migration, as I am, or still living in the South. As the National Book Award for Poetry winner and self-described Afro-Asian poet Nikki Finney writes in her poem, Brown Country, I love country for the tender story, for the blazing heart, for the ache and sorrow sweetness. But this pleasure in the music is always in tension with the lived experience of racial and gender violence. In the poem, Finney describes the feeling of dozens of fawn overbeaten eyes that she still feels when stopping at an all-white country west rest stop, getting gas for her car as a black woman alone. She imagines, or maybe actually sees, a man in a cowboy hat bringing his buddies to the window to look at her, and the music she loves is transposed into an assault. They sing their pants up and down like a fiddle. Scanning the green landscape, she has a vision of her grandfather untying himself from all the trees. He pops and stretches his many necks back into place. Despite her love and craving for country music, she acknowledges this is the music we were lynched by. These are the hangman songs. In Nutbush City Limits from 1973, the first song that Tina Turner penned herself and recorded at Bullet Sound Studio, the Inglewood, California recording studio complex built by her husband, Ike, and written in the depths of the worst days of her infamously violent first marriage. She reaches back to her own country Tennessee childhood. In her memoirs, I, Tina, and My Love Story, Turner says that as a child she turned to the backwoods and fields of Nutbush as a place of escape from her parents' often violent arguments. But in the song Nutbush City Limits, rather than giving us nostalgia for a place simpler and greener than people put it, a country escape, Tina's very first lines describe small town life as a series of oppositions, with a palpable tension lurking just beneath the surface, just like her present one. A church house, gin house, a schoolhouse, outhouse. On Highway number 19, people keep the city clean. She describes Nutbush, Tennessee daily life as having a tightly choreographed rhythm. Church on Sunday, picnic on Labor Day, work the fields during the week. A careful schedule allowing little room to get out of line. Turner is matter of fact. Get caught drinking in this dry town and will get sent in jail without bail. And salt pork and molasses is all you get in jail. Specific details help us imagine this as a hard-won lesson for her. It also makes me wonder if there are more lessons that we're not hearing about. When the presence of white supremacy goes unnamed in other city limits, the song dramatizes how it feels to live under the conditions of control and fear. You have to watch what you're putting down, the song tells us. If there is affection for the town to be found in Nutbush, it's an affection told from the point of view of a survivor.
I think the two chapters are in relationship to each other because it's rooted in Black women's anger. How can we express our anger, knowing that we are constantly surveilled in all areas of our life? From the moment we are born to now, the moment we leave, that surveillance that need to perform, that need to hide things. And I feel that both Tina and Beyoncé use music to express, and use country music to express it, because it's the only genre that can really contain all of those multitudes and those facets that really touch that other child.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I just think about Open Young Lemonade with Beyoncé with her poignant, you know, and that feeling of claiming protection in the performance space and also in the space. And, you know, for sure, I think that sense of having a mask that can protect you in times of deep surveillance or the threat of violence, but also having a space of freedom is so important for both Tina and for Beyoncé.
So I don't understood you need to guide it. But how do we on front of everyone? I saw some people leaving and I didn't know it was me.
317.
Oh, okay, 13 months over. They're honky tonk. I feel good. Okay, you know, we are calling response types people, so yes. So there's something I want to figure out. Okay. In recent years, cowgirl couture has become something that is came into pop culture consciousness. There were rumors of Beyonce doing a country album, and we know that we have seen a lot of visibility, movement, diversity, equity, inclusion of country music coming into the mainstream. I think the BET Awards had its first country musician there in the series programming. So what are your thoughts about this kind of next wave that is coming? Not only, I guess, mainstream country, but also mainstream Black music accepting country and making space for its regular programming.
Yeah, I think I might feel more hopeful about Black artists embracing country music and claiming it or reclaiming it than I do about the mainstream country music industry. I do kind of worry a little bit that this moment is kind of a moment of trendy. But on the other hand, those trends really reflect hard work of people doing things on the ground to create community and create connection. And I do think that without, patting myself on the back, I do think that having books and conversations in public and documenting things and widening what African American studies could be to also be country music or what queer theory can be, I think that can have an impact and it can help, like let other people in to write and reflect and make these connections. And I think in terms of the music industry, what I see in terms of artists is this unwillingness to be constrained by the rules of genre. And I think that that's a really important movement to reclaim a genre, but also to keep pushing it outwards. And I can hear that in anyone from Brittany Spencer to who's doing more traditional work, or more in treaty to someone like Delilah, who's bringing together punk and other forms with country music. So I think that we're at this moment of not even reckoning, it's just more like embracing ourselves in all of these spaces, including country music, and really celebrating Black innovation. And that's what I see the #BHOT agenda as doing, I think that also having fun, improvising, changing styles, even while also connecting to these older styles. I think that's happening on the ground. So I hope that we're in a moment where the future of country music means that there are these innovative new forms where people can find themselves, where people are creating more community to make music. And I can see the seeds of that being planted by people like Hawaii and Rizzi, really owning the means of production, which I think is really important, as much as we can. And I actually think that mainstream country might continue to exist and follow the same rules, or it might be left behind and find that, actually, a big part of our turned on audience, our new audiences, are not accepting these old rules and standards about, very selective people of color in country music. And if we really want to keep the attention of new audiences, we have to roll with the times. So my favorite part of this bridge called My Back is this poem, and it has this line, structure, drown, evolve, or die. And so I really hope that that evolution is what we see in country. But I think whatever else is happening, Black artists are innovating and making great things and creating new things. And this is an important, an important part of expanding our sense of our own history, where we come from, as well as possibility.
One of my favorite innovations in the past couple of years was Old Town Road.
Yes.
And I've seen Old Town do this in our hands 3 times.
Yes.
Whether it's the K-pop version, whether it's the yodeling version, whether it's the young version, Susan, all of these different variations that yeah. But you speak in the book about the reaction to Old Town Road, the individual embrace of Old Town Road, but not from the CMAs from the BET Awards or Billy Ray Cyrus was there. So when I think about Black innovation, even though Nas X being like, it is fluid. Why must I be contained in a genre, but however, I still can be playing this.
Yes.
And country music can be expanded. So if you could tell me a little bit about that innovative moments, because it's a nugget that y'all should really get into in here.
Yes. Thank you. I love Lil Nas X. And I love that, like now with Montero and whatever Nas X's future is, because he's always making music faster than I can keep up with. Like country music is there as a reference point, he's making Jolene, he's integrating, a little allusion to Brokeback Mountain, in his video for Montero. And, I just think that he's a great example of the structure drown idea. Like that's the demand that Lil Nas X is presenting to us. And whether it's making the kind of music that you want, sampling whatever you want, and bringing the sounds together, or distributing things like on your own terms, using technologies that are totally surpassing record labels and distribution companies, or the lists like Billboard. So I think that there's just like this kind of boldness and queerness to the insurgency of a lot of Nas X's methods, as well as the sound that is, to me, like a sign of the future. When I was writing about him, I could have tried to imagine through the lens of my daughter, because my daughter loves him, and also because he, like my daughter, I am imagining a future where those rules of genre and how you make music, how you make money, or make a career out of it has to change. And so that's my key represents one of the best quotes. I just think this is awesome.
To any of the outlaw, and when you were describing it, the underground economy, things that may be illegal, that is the same type of definition that is used for track music that comes out of Atlanta, that is something that was regional and speaks to Blackness, but that has disseminated throughout the globe and is replicated.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, his trap country, comes by its name, for good reason, because he is also, doing something local and underground at the same time. That he's also like international and making an impact in a larger way. Okay, I just saw that in my 5 minutes.
Okay. Well, in closing of this beautiful session, I want to say that you came to Texas in the most ideal time. A couple weeks ago, we had Bun B's Southern Takeover at the Houston Rodeo. We had Bun, we had Big Crit, we had Erica Badu. So your work is actually in line with just coming in where Black artists who are from Texas, who are from the South, who may not be known worldwide, or their roots may not be known worldwide, but are doing this work on these large platforms and these stages and saying that I am Black, and I am Southern, and I am country. All of these intersections of my identities can be seen and bring them with them into a room. So I thank you for being a champion and someone who's encouraging Black folks and brown folks and queer folks and all folks who have relationships with music really love this work. I read it as a multi-generational text and as someone who's descendant of the Black South, who grew up listening to country music with old family members, with uncles, that kind of felt this cognitive dissonance and spatialness to it. So thank you for bringing me back on the work, and I hope that it brings a lot of people back.
Thank you so much.
Anytime.